Afternoon, a warm welcome to you all. Thanks for being here. Reminder that we are on air. There's a sign up there, and for those that are listening from at home or in the office, welcome and thank you for joining us. And mobiles, if you have those with you, if you could have them switched off, which would be great. Others can interfere with the recording. Please be seated. Thank you. I have the one apology from Alderman Gibson. He's obviously doing his production of 7 Little Australians at the moment, which is starting tomorrow night. And Alderman Kendrick said could be a little bit late attending a funeral. So he obviously is a bit late. Any declaration of interest? No. Confirmation of minutes. Somebody happy to move the minutes held on 30th of July? Deputy Mayor, thank you. And Alderman Alexander, second. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all Aldermen. That is carried. There are no deputations, no petitions, no community reports. So public question time not on notice. Any public questions? Just state your name and address for the records. Thank you.
Council paid for ads concerning development in more than City Square.
General Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, the council does. Obviously, it was included as part of the funding commitment that was provided to the council from the federal and state government that we do advertise and make that part of the project. So,
thank you.
Your Worship, you appear at those sessions, and doesn't that give you an unfair advantage over other people who may, Alderman or anyone else that may wish to stand as mayor?
Am I on them, am I? I don't think I'm on them. I'm not sure. I'm not on the commercial.
Well, the ads have been, the ads are co-op. The pictures are coming over loud and clear with you making statements on them.
Not on ads, only on general public I do, with commercial on the launches, etc. But I'm not on any ad that I'm aware of.
You are the
Am I? Oh, thank you. Oh. But I don't think I'm on the ads. So. Thank you for your question.
The other question I've got is on the budget amendments. The following items, which is item 22, the following items have been affected by external funding not received. Why hasn't it been received? Is this normal practice to be allowing you 15 million to be?
Thank you. Yep. General Manager or Director? Or can we give it in writing? You want to take it in? We'll take it as notice and give you a written response. If they've got, you got it?
Just give me some answers.
Some answer? Okay.
I'll give you an answer, Mr. Fitch. It just depends on when the funding comes in, the actual funds come in from
it's more
the
timing.
entity funding. It's about
the timing of funds.
There's nothing that's danger of not.
No.
No. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I apologise for not being here the last 2 minutes.
Oh, that's accepted. Thank you. It's only one meeting, isn't it?
The lady that came out in the paper on the 25th of July concerning the rate rises, over the last 7 years, on average, rates have gone up 3.4%. I just want to know what the council's going to do about it. One of my concerns is it's unsustainable. No one is getting these pay increases. I just want to know where the council stands on it. One point I've brought up before, 4 tenders over $10,000 on work that the council does should have 3 quotes. I work at a lot of schools, anything over 10,000, 3 quotes.
Yeah, thank you. It's not a statement time. You asked the question. We'll answer it now. Thank you. General Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So in respect to the question, so the council is currently reviewing its long-term finance plan, and that will be coming forward to council next month. So there's a set of measures that are included in the plan which are aimed to keep rate increases to a minimum level. Initiatives such as the business improvement program, so the introduction of lean processes throughout the council, service review processes and review of our depreciation are just a few of the measures that are included in that plan. So certainly encourage you to have a look at that when it's on the council agenda for September.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So we'll move on, and under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, Council acts as planning authority in regard to items included in the agenda under item 8 as a planning authority. 8.1, and we do have some speakers for 8.1. General Manager, if you could read out the rules, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Only residents, ratepayers or people on the electoral roll of the City of Launceston may address an item on the agenda. Before commencing, please state your name and address or property owned in Launceston. You may speak for up to 2 minutes. There is no extension of time permitted. You must speak for or against the recommendation, not ask questions of aldermen or officers or attempt to enter into debate with aldermen or officers. Statements can only be made either directly relating to supporting the recommendations or arguing against it. Comments and statements are not to be defamatory, offensive or abusive or be designed to embarrass any person, including aldermen or officers. Statements are not to be repetitive of statements or points already made. Several people repeating a common position should nominate a single speaker on their behalf. The Mayor may ask a member of the gallery to cease speaking if the above procedures are not followed. Following hearing the comments of the gallery, Alderman will then consider the item.
Thank you, General Manager. Brad Reeves.
Brad Reeves of 4 Bellevue Avenue in South Launceston. Thanks for the opportunity to talk on behalf of my development application at 5 Anglican Street in South Launceston, the scope of which is to renovate the existing 3-bedroom residential dwelling, including erection of a new double garage in place of the existing carport and building of 2 new 3-bedroom residential townhouses. Land is only general residential in the Launceston City Council interim scheme 2015. The use class of the proposal is existing. Used residential will continue to be used as residential permitted for multiple dwellings. The intent for this development is to construct modern, energy-efficient properties close to the CBD that allow people to walk or ride to work or town rather than drive. The development will utilise existing infrastructure, power, water, stormwater, sewer, which is more responsible than expanding urban sprawl. This allows council rates, TAS water and TAS network fees to be spent on upgrading ageing infrastructure and assets, as opposed to spending in new subdivisions. When designing for new homes, I had the neighbouring properties in mind. Some examples of this include excavating into the lot to reduce variable height of the properties, ensuring that neighbours to the north-east will still have their views of the West Launceston Hills, and overshadowing into their properties is eliminated. Installing screening to the deck of dwelling 1 to ensure privacy of the neighbours to the north, and installation of 10 off-street car park spaces to minimise the impact of parking in the street. Although I am sympathetic to the neighbours' concerns and understand that the streetscape within Eglinton and Hampton Streets has not changed in some time, I believe that my proposal is in compliance with the planning scheme and will allow 2 more families to enjoy the amenity that current residents experience. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and I hope that you vote in favour of approving my development so that I can begin to live my home.
Thank you. Desmond Baker.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm against the development of the one just named. Basically, my objections to it is that the turning circle in Hampton Street being very narrow. You need to do a 3-point turn, you need the whole length of the road. So on the southern side of Hampton Street, there will be no vehicle parking at all. That will limit any family members coming to, firstly, my house, and my own parking facilities will be taken away if this project goes ahead. I'm not really against new modern development. I've worked in my life in the building industry, so I know what it's all about. But the noise factor coming from this house, this project, will definitely impact on our living standards. The lights that enter and go from the dwelling will be unbearable. The tail lights and the noise factor from the cars going and coming will be unbelievable in the area. when people walk up Hammond Street, you can even hear the people talking out in the street. That's how close we are, and that's the way the house has been built previously. Understand the developers stick little boxes, quite understand that because that's their job to do it, people get paid to do it, but the living environment that will be put on the stress, will be put on my family and my home and our home life will be unbearable. So that's, basically what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Your address is 7 Hampden Street?
Sorry, yes.
No worries. Thank you. Any other speakers? Somebody happy to move a motion? Alderman Finlay? Moved. Seconded. Deputy Mayor. Do you wish to speak to it, Alderman Finlay?
Thanks, Mayor. As both of the speakers have outlined, the nature of development, although tight in the area, not inconsistent with pattern of development in the street, that generally the development conforms, complies with the planning scheme. The one matter in terms of traffic impact is the matter that on the bus trip this morning was of consideration of the Alderman and recognising that the importance of supporting infill in terms of the impact of the infrastructure and the recognition of what will be required to enter and exit the property, although tight and will require some manoeuvrability, in my assessment seems possible. And so although it is a tight development and there will be traffic considerations in the area, given that the development application is largely compliant with the scheme, it has my support today.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor? I'll reserve my right for the moment. Thank you. Any other Alderman wish to speak? Alderman Mackenzie?
Look, I live in the area as well, and I've had a number of viewings of the particular street and looked at the development, and I think the proponent in relation to the way that he's explained the way that he's trying to set the buildings into to make it less impactful on the street and the surrounds. I guess I look at a number of things, and I just try and look at it in relation to the planning scheme, and the zone purpose is to encourage residential development that respects the existing and desired neighbourhood character. So the question is, do we really think that this is the case in relation to this type of development, because it's a more modern, as spoken, more energy efficient, and it doesn't quite fit in with the neighbourhood characteristics. To control the size of dwellings to provide reasonably consistent separation between the dwellings and adjoining lot sites and dwelling and its frontage. Again, if you actually look up and down Hampden Street, most of the houses are very closely aligned to each other, and probably the one that's actually being developed or being proposed to be developed is actually probably the one with the most space in the whole area. As a consequence of that, from a size and dimension point of view, fitting into that street, it probably fits into the character of the street as far as the density goes. It's just whether it actually fits as the way it looks. Setback discretions, and the question is the visual impact caused by the apparent scale, bulk and proportions of the dwelling when viewed from an adjacent lot. Again, I was probably more concerned about it till I listened to the developer today in relation to how the block that's facing Hampden Street fits in with the one above it, and the fact that there's a deck which effectively looks out over the top of what is a garden now and will be buildings in the future. So again, the amenity associated with the change from that, and again, you can't protect a view, but that's still amenity for somebody. And I guess the main one, which I guess is the representative made comment in relation to a few moments ago, is the road access and the functionality. The objective is to ensure that the safety and efficiency of the roads are not reduced by the creation of new accesses and junctions. Given the narrow nature of Hampden Street, and the new crossover is going to put further pressure on parking safely in the street, and particularly those that park on the one side that actually is impacted by it, because we can only park on one side of Hampden Street. So I'm certainly concerned that we potentially lose one parking space, and if we don't, we actually create a hazard with cars reversing out of driveways into potentially cars on the other side of the road. And I think it's also worth noting that it is a dead-end street, but the street itself actually has no turning ability at the top of it. So as a consequence of that, either somebody's got to turn into a driveway or they've got to reverse their way back down the street. So at this point in time, I'm interested to listen to what others have got to say before I make my decisions, but they're the concerns I have with the development. and I'll just wait for others to speak.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Did you wish to speak now, Deputy?
Thanks, Mayor. An interesting one, this one, and I guess what I tend to do when these items come to us, I tend to read the concerns and the representations first, I guess, to try and get my head around what the issues are, and like others around the table, obviously I know the area fairly well. Mr Mayor, in what's in front of us in the representations, there's a number of things that are raised that do not fall within the remit of the scheme. So things like people saying that their house now won't be worth as much. They're things that we can't consider when we sit as a planning authority. Similarly, there's things here around impact on other developments and so on. So when we sit as a planning authority, we have to, I guess, follow the rules of the planning scheme as they are. We can't put things into it around the price of houses and all that sort of stuff. And when I read through the report, publicly available report, it's very clear to me when this has been assessed that it's compliant, and where it relies on performance criteria, again, the officers have gone into significant detail in showing that where it meets that. It's challenging, and Mr Baker, in his remarks as a long-term resident of the area, highlighted some concerns him and others have that have been raised, I know, with aldermen. So whilst hearing that and understanding that, if we, I guess, refuse this today, and even though it complies all the way through, that puts us in a fairly invidious position as a council, in my view. And in reading through this, the developer, to my mind, has gone a long way to come up with something that is a well thought through development. It's not just something that the developers just plonked in there and thought, well, we'll make this work. It's something that's had a lot of thought put into it. And as Alderman Finlay in her remarks said, infill development is obviously something that we're keen to support. The other one, Mr Mayor, that I also wanted to make the point while I was on my feet was around, we often hear talk of heritage, and new developments like this one don't comply with the heritage of the city or the heritage of the area. Well, as it's mentioned in the report, and not everyone perhaps has read the report, the area itself, isn't part, if you like, of any particular heritage listing, and that's really, really important to note, because I think sometimes out there, Mr Mayor, there is a little bit of confusion around that. If there's some older buildings in the area, nice older buildings as they usually are, people think it's a heritage precinct. Well, that's not the particular case here. So we can't say, oh no, we can't approve it because it's not complying with the heritage scheme. I think that's really important to note that. I hope that other aldermen have some comments on it, but as it is, Mr Mayor, I'll be supporting it. As I said, I do recognise the traffic concerns, but I think that given that the development itself complies, it would be very difficult for us to knock it back, given that it is compliant where it needs to be compliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Any other speakers? Alderman Finlay, you wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? So there's 2 against, the rest are for. The motion is carried. Under item 8.2, we do have a speaker for 8.2. Okay, Greg.
Of 1 unit per 565 square metres. The acceptable solution design is 350. So you can see that the applicants in designing for their units could have actually put fewer units in there, but chose a less intense development. So following on from that, the impact on the general area is acceptable, and it complies with the car parking code. Also note that Croydon Avenue does have a width of 6 metres all the way to Cypress Street, and the proposal won't result in an addition of 10 to 16 additional traffic movements, which is well below the acceptable solution. The key issue where we have really listened to residents in the area is the rubbish bin removal, and you'd note that condition 6 of the recommendation applications to enter into the carbon waste agreement. So we hope that you can vote in accordance with the recommendations of the officers.
Thank you. Somebody happy to move a motion? Moved, Alderman Mackenzie. Seconded, Alderman Finlay. Do you wish to speak to it, Alderman Mackenzie?
Just briefly, Mr Mayor. Look, I've looked through the application. We visited the site. The site has plenty of room to enable the development to occur. There are a number of issues that have been raised by the representors in relation to the access along Croydon Avenue, whether it's carrying on a business there or not, which is subject to another issue. But from the advice that we've received today, the access is okay. The development is compliant with the standards, and therefore I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Alderman Mackenzie. Alderman Finlay. Any other speakers? Do you wish to close, Alderman Mackenzie? No. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all aldermen present. The motion is carried. Now move on to, I will now no longer sit as a planning authority. Go to Mayor's announcements. I just want to mention that it was really great to be at the citizenship ceremony a couple of weeks ago, Tuesday 2 weeks ago, tomorrow 2 weeks ago, and see 89 new citizens into our great city, and to see the excitement on their faces and to see the new citizens when they got their certificate to hold it up and proudly was fantastic, and I always enjoy those occasions, so it was a great event. Also, on the Saturday, the 4th of August, I did go to the Global Village celebrations, part of Peace Festival, and I thank those on the committee of Peace Festival. But the Global Village celebrations at the West Launceston Primary School was on the Saturday and the Sunday, and there's quite a few people there on the Saturday when I was there, and there was a good crowd there, and very thankful for the work that the group has done, especially the Women's Friendship Group were involved with that, and also a committee was formed to organise that. And they did a great job, a lot of different cultures working together and a lot of ways to encourage one another. So a great event, and a lot of people were encouraged by the other events I know that some would have gone to, and some of the aldermen may comment on that later. Also attended the opening night of Launceston College production Jesus Christ Superstar. Absolutely fantastic performance, incredible performance really, and it's amazing to see the talent we have in the city. So it's very pleasing to see the young people, how they're developing, and I think the growth in the last 10 years has been amazing, and the productions that our local community can put on is really, really great. And then on Saturday night, I did go to the Tasmanian Open Dance Sport Championships at the Silver Dome. Alderman Gibson was there, and Alderman Stojanchek was there. And it was, look, fantastic, a really great event as well, a really fantastic event, high-class dancers, obviously, but also the entertainment and the way they put it together, absolutely incredible and fantastic. A credit to the organisers, and they're very thankful for the support they get from the City Council as a major event, or as an event that we sponsor. So thanks to the Aldermen and our staff for the work they've done on that, but it's a really important event for our city, and many people were there from Europe, a couple from Europe as well, but also mainly around Australia, a lot of from Victoria, and it's just, I think, an exciting time for our city to have that event and to see so many people enjoy it. And I think it's about the second year in a row that they've come on. It's always around this time in August, and it's quite a cool weather. So I'm glad it's the warmth of the people that keeps the many that keep coming back, because they do enjoy it. And actually, they've really worked out well with where I was sitting. I'm not sure about the rest of the Silver Dome. To the warmth, it was very warm where I was sitting, but I'm not sure how I got up in the stands. But anyway, I know there's a number there. Very good, thank you. I know there are others in the crowd that were there, and they got a way to make it warmer now, and that's fantastic. So great event and important for our city. That's it from myself. Alderman's reports. Alderman Wood.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to highlight and make mention, as a member of Council's Youth Advisory Group, what a successful round of seed applications we received at the advisory group last week. These submissions are put in and compiled by school groups around our community to access funding that Council offers, and the pool this year was about $2,000. And I'm very happy to report that the top quality submissions were received from Lilydale District School, which were awarded $950 towards building outdoor seating for their school. Prospect High School was awarded $500 for a new school film project there, advertising the benefits of Prospect High. Launceston Church Grammar School was awarded $400 to set up an awareness stand at their spring fair in October, and $150 was awarded to St Patrick's College to host an event that's called Are You OK Day. So the quality of the applicants was tremendous, and of course the Youth Advisory Group, which is made up by students up to the age, I think, of 22, assessed the applications and made those recommendations. So it's a terrific thing, and I commend all the members of the Youth Advisory Group on that. It's also to note that the Youth Advisory Group will be conducting a Youth Council meeting here in the Chamber on Tuesday, September 4, and they'll be holding a mock meeting, and I know that we attended last year, I think Alderman McKendrick and yourself and Alderman Finlay, and I think it's a very worthwhile thing to get involved with if you're free. Also, just to highlight briefly the success of the New Horizons Icebreaker Challenge yesterday, held at the Aquatic Centre, and my profound thanks to the Mayor for coming along, and of course to Alderman Hugh Mackenzie for his performance yesterday. It was jolly cold, but I believe the day raised $5,000, so really commend New Horizons for their work. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. With your leave, I'm going to go slightly off script and just bring a report back to the table in terms of the Tornadoes outcome on Saturday night.
Did they win?
A fantastic event, and great for the Launceston community to get the support, but the reason to stand is to encourage anyone listening at home or that sees this or listens to the outcome of the meeting that Saturday night will be in Victoria. Hobart Chargers also won their game on Friday night, so a great reflection of where basketball's at in Tasmania. And we're just calling out for anybody that lives in Melbourne or knows anybody in Melbourne or wants to get from Launceston to Melbourne to get to the stadium, 5:45 on Saturday night on Turner. Thank you. Where we take on Bendigo. Look out, here we come.
Well done. Congratulations to the Tornado. It's a great effort. Alderman Mackenzie.
Yes, it was very cold.
Very good.
I actually just wanted to highlight something Alderman Wood was speaking about. Schools a few moments ago, and I just wanted to highlight the work of Elizabeth Clark and others within the council chamber. The number of students coming through the council chamber this year has been more than any number I've ever seen in the 7 years I've been here, coming in and learning about the town hall, what it does, how it works, and coming up and sitting in the chamber and understanding that, which I think is a great thing, hopefully for the civic nature and civic mindedness of those young people going forward, that they might put their name forward one day to come and be in this chamber in some way or another. But I just thought it's worth acknowledging because I just had been very mindful of the numbers of people that were coming through the place.
Thank you, Alderman Mackenzie. Any other Alderman reports? Any questions from Alderman? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Just with a little bit of background for Alderman to the question that I've already sent to the GM. Last week, the City of Kwinana in WA made a post regarding some rubbish removal in Henley Reserve. That particular post went viral with over 2.5 million people being reached in 48 hours. So my question is, the City of Kwinana has taken measures to reduce the discharge of rubbish from its drainage systems, preventing gross pollutants and solid waste being discharged into its nature reserves by installing 2 drainage nets in March 2018, which have since collected 370 kilograms of debris. Does the City of Launceston do anything similar to perform a similar function?
Thank you. General Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As the Deputy Mayor said, he gave me the benefit of an earlier notice of the question, and I'm pleased to be able to say that we certainly do. The Council already has 6 gross pollutant traps installed in our network, and the most recent ones was established in Hume Street in 2015, so we have been at it for quite some time. I think what the question highlights is that perhaps we don't promote our efforts as much as we can, and so the next time we clean out the largest of the gross pollutant traps, which is at Lambert Street, we'll do some media around that so people can see the amount of debris that those traps are actually capturing and keeping out of the environment.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to the General Manager, and the fact that's wonderful, and the fact that the interest in this issue is obviously significant, and we look forward to seeing that report.
Thank you. Alderman Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following on, and I have advised the General Manager that a question was coming in relation to the Macquarie tree house removal that was we were advised of this morning. I think the plane tree is to be removed because of the risk or unacceptable risk of harm, and I'm just wanting clarification from the General Manager as to what's caused that harm. Is it something that we've done to damage it, or is it something that actually was existing in the tree?
Director Bruce will answer that. Thank you, Bruce.
In completing any infrastructure works, there's a clear preference on our behalf to retain any mature vegetation, as it's both environmentally responsible and a valuable asset to council. In making an application for these works, the opinion of an arborist was sought and included in the application. The arborist noted that the plane tree be retained during the early works of the project in an attempt to include it in the modified landscape. They also noted that pruning required for the building works would substantially reduce the tree's landscape service and amenity, and further that the tree may need to be removed during construction and an inspection of the roots be undertaken at that time. Now the ground has been opened up, a further opinion has been sought, and the arborist has advised that the current risk of the tree of harm presented by it is unacceptable. So on that basis, the tree's unfortunately been removed, but it shall be replaced by a new tree as part of the landscape works.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? We move on. The council workshops is there noting? Yep. Is it a question or you just go?
Number 12.
12. No committee reports.
There's no committee reports.
You want to mention that?
I'll take advice. I'll take advice. I'll either quickly run through it now, or I may have to pass it through the GM first as tick off for the agenda. But I've been preferable. Yeah. Would it really? It was about the tree committee. Just a highlight of the tree committee that met.
Yeah, that'll come in the next council meeting then if there's a report coming.
Well, it's not really, because I've just got it here and a request during the week to perhaps make some mention that the tree committee is alive and well, and they've had a meeting and report.
You've done that? Well done.
So what I'm trying to do is just say some of the good work that the council officers are doing in the trees around the city of Launceston. And if I can just bear with me, out of the meeting, it was suggested that the city prom by Mr. Tim Holder to work together in suggesting to businesses within the CBD and give the opportunity, excuse me, to donate funds for street tree planting. So it's a combination of working together with our retailers, in particular business locations, and also that I don't think I'll give the site, but we've also planted 80 almond trees in the reserve, which are brilliant. And might I say, the residents in that area are very impressed and well nourished. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We're on to council workshops. There's no comment on council workshops. There's no notice of motions. 15.1, delegation from council to the General Manager. We've got to count until we have a motion. Moved, Alderman Mackenzie. Is there a seconder? Alderman Finlay. Now, question, Alderman Kendrick.
Just quickly outline if there are any changes to the existing. I have read through it. Sorry, thank you. I have read through the document. I'd just like to know whether there are any changes, and particularly whether there's any change to when an application has reached its use by date of time frame for being a decision. That area as well. Not that I have any trouble with GMs and so on, mayors, but whether there's been any change to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hurst.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, the advice from the governance and paralegal officer who prepared the report is that no, there aren't any changes, and with respect to those applications that have reached the deemed approval date, and where an extension hasn't been granted, it does provide for the General Manager to make a determination to avoid us ending up in trouble with the tribunal. But in my time here, we actually have never had anybody not provide that extension of time.
Alderman Mackenzie.
I'd like to thank my erstwhile colleague to the right for asking that question, because I was going to ask the very question myself to make sure that in moving the motion that I wasn't signing myself up to something that we hadn't been already doing. So I'm very pleased that he's made that risk, and as a consequence of that, I think for the efficient running of council, I think it's a very appropriate resolution.
Thank you. Alderman Finlay. Any other alderman wish to speak? Do you wish to close, Alderman? No. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? And that is all aldermen present. That is carried. We go on to 16.1, the Headstone project. Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Alderman Wood. Deputy Mayor, you wish to speak?
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and delighted with the position we've taken on this one. And just as a little tiny bit of background, Council was approached by a group like volunteers who'd done some excellent work in Hobart, and their imprimatur, I guess, was to identify ex-service people from World War I who had come back, who'd returned home after the war and had been buried in cemeteries around the state, and for whatever reason their burial wasn't commemorated with a headstone. As we know, Mr Mayor, at that time when many of these service people came back, there were significant issues. Well, we'd call them these days PTSD. These men went away and came back very different, and in some cases fell into poverty, were homeless, and when they were buried, there wasn't any money to afford a headstone for them. So this particular group of volunteers had undertaken some work in Cornelian Bay Cemetery in Hobart, presented to Aldermen, and at that stage, as is highlighted in our report, they had identified 9 unmarked graves in our cemetery at Carvilla. Mr Mayor, and this is a good problem to have, I guess, through their diligence and hard work and research that they undertook, they didn't find that there were 9, they actually identified that there were another 170. And with their diligence, they found another 170 people who were fitting this criteria. With that, obviously, they made a request that there be a waiving of some permit fees, and as is highlighted very clearly in our report, other councils and their cemeteries had done that for them. Alderman Wood and I were at the recent commemoration that the opening of the highlighting of the first 9, and Mr Frost was there, and much was made, and I mentioned it at our last meeting, of the grateful nature of this group with the support that the team out there at Carvilla had given them, and I think this is very fitting today that we do this, and again, falling into line with what other councils have done. And once again, as I've done before, and I know other aldermen have as well, commend the group on their diligence and hard work. They are people with an interest in history and World War I, and you know, I commend them for that, and think it's a fitting tribute to people who went away and fought for our country, came back, different people, different circumstances, tough circumstances. It's a fitting way to acknowledge what they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Alderman Wood.
Thanks, Mayor. I think the Deputy Mayor summed it up very, very well. I would just like to add also my endorsement for Council to continue to support this really worthwhile project in our community. We note that it's supported in this manner by other councils around the state, and I think that it's just and fitting that we do it also. Mrs Andrea Gerard and her team of volunteers are doing a fantastic job diligently locating and identifying these unmarked graves, and you know, they served the country, and as it said in something I read at the Carvilla service the other week, they served and they're not to be forgotten, and I really commend the council on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other alderman wish to speak? Deputy Mayor, you wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand, and that is all aldermen present. The motion is carried. 18.1, street name. Alderman Kendrick. moved. Seconded, Alderman Mackenzie. No. Alderman Mackenzie? Any Alderman wish to speak? It's appropriate. So we'll put the motion then. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all Aldermen present. The motion is carried. 18.2, moved by Alderman McKendrick, seconded by Alderman Mackenzie, was it? No? Seconded? Alderman Cox. Alderman McKendrick, you wish to speak to it?
No,
You're not allowed to. By who? Alderman Cox? Any Alderman wish to speak to Alderman Mackenzie?
Look, I do want to speak only because this has been a great success, I think, to Launceston and Heritage Forest. I think that the way that community groups work together to provide something as great as the Heritage Forest Community Garden and the way that's working with the way Youth Futures have interacted in relation to it. And certainly, I guess Alderman Soward and I, who sit on the Heritage Forest Committee together, see the hard work and diligence that's gone into that, and the support from Tas Community Fund, government funding, our funding, I think is terrific. And I think certainly they're a great model for community success.
Thank you, Alderman Mackenzie. Any other Alderman wish to speak? Alderman Kendrick, you wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand, and that is all Aldermen present. The motion is carried. Lease Tamer Bridge Club, moved Alderman Kendrick. Seconded Alderman Finlay. Do you wish to speak, Alderman Kendrick? Question, Alderman Mackenzie.
I'd just given we had the previous one where we are leasing for $1, and there are a number of other community facilities where we are leasing our premises for $1 and they pay the outgoings. I'm just interested because we are charging this, I think, $2,933.55 plus GST and linked to the CPI for the next two years and a bit until it's demolished, as to the rationale behind doing that for this club and not doing other things for other clubs. Just try and get the rationale right. Do you want to answer?
Who wants to answer it? General Manager.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, we will have to take it on notice and give you the specific reasons why. The view would be we maintain the status quo until obviously the current lease comes to a close. We are in the process of completing a review of our leasing system with a view to providing greater level of consistency between all of our users, because these sorts of issues obviously keep presenting themselves. So the short answer is that status quo remains until we bring that one to a close.
Any other? Alderman Kendrick, did you wish to speak? Alderman Finlay? Any Alderman wish to speak to it? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Those against? That's one against, the rest are for. The motion is carried. Item 20.1, council meeting change. Moved Alderman Kendrick, seconded Alderman Mackenzie. Wish to speak to it, Alderman Kendrick?
I mean, to say that it is self-explanatory, and I think it's a good move with the election showing up in the time frame that we perhaps needed today. Hopefully their time frame won't be as long as it takes to get the result. But I think it's a good move, and it's happy to move.
Thank you. Alderman Mackenzie? Any other Alderman wish to speak? Wish to close?
No.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all Aldermen present. The motion is carried. 20.2, the budget amendments. Moved Alderman Mackenzie. Second Alderman Kendrick. Wish to speak to it, Alderman Mackenzie?
Only to say I think that the Director made comments when it was asked an open question in relation to why we have the large change of data. Once we don't actually receive the money, we actually have to take it out and then put it back into a new budget. So I think that that's reasonably self-explanatory. And I guess it's important that we do note that there have been a couple of things that have been transferred between different things to do with the design kitchen upgrade, which we approved a little while ago, and a very small amount in relation to the St Patrick or the Pex Road thing. But all these things need to come back for council approval.
Alderman Kendrick. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Only to highlight, and it's a shame that some of the people who've asked questions before aren't here to see this data. Absolutely, Mr Mayor, crystal clear, black and white figures there. Jump out off the tablet at you, right in your face. very clear what they are. I noticed line items, the whole thing. So once again, the information is there if people want to find it, and you know, it's great. And unfortunately, sometimes facts get in the way of a good story, but it's all there in black and white.
Thank you, Deputy. Any other speakers? Lord Mackenzie, you wish to close?
Yeah. Yes, the Deputy Mayor's actually given me food for thought, because I think that we've been reading in the press about how we've been spending 20 million and 30 million and things like that on various capital projects, and making the assumption that the council was expending all of those dollars. And I think clearly when you read through the external grants there, the LCH, Brisbane Street Mall, the 3 million, Central Launceston, the bridge, various things, we can see that there are commitments that are being given to us by government other than ours. So we're actually receiving a lot of grant money in relation to Civic Square, the mall, and for those out there listening, they need to understand that when you start quoting figures, you should take into account who's actually contributing to the projects.
Thank you. Well done. Any other? Oh, it's closing. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all aldermen present. The motion is carried. Could I have a motion that we go into closed council? Moved Alderman Kendrick, seconded Deputy Mayor. All those in favour, please raise your hand. We go into closed council. That is carried. Thank you. We're now in closed.
Today's council